Well, I'm glad to see people here. Hopefully you're enjoying the forum. Hopefully you found yesterday's cybersecurity program interesting, because that's my main concern, to be honest. I mean, I also want to see people come to the forum. I always say the wrong thing. I have a real knack for that. If you ever think of it, I talk too much, and the outcomes things I wish I hadn't said. But anyhow, in this session, what we're going to talk about is the. Let me go back. Okay. In this session, yesterday you heard me talk a lot yesterday about collaborative. I'll use the word collaborative IT/OT cybersecurity. Okay. Is everybody happier with that? Most people are. So, okay. But the slides still say convergence, so ignore the slides. But anyhow, yesterday I talked about that, and unfortunately the slides got screwed up a little bit. So the slides I wanted to show weren't in the session and Rob actually asked, I wish we could see the slide, but we didn't have the slide. So you're going to have to go through those again with me today, but I did want to share what we had, which is some results of that preliminary kind of survey, I guess you'd call it. But then what I want to focus on in this session is, a lot of people, you heard me yesterday say 70% of the companies said they had some kind of a program in place. So I know people are doing that. I think most of them, many of them I'll say, are really got to do with getting teams to collaborate. It's people was the focus. And I think that's great. And it's good to see people are doing that. But the one thing I think, and maybe I'm always a forward thinker, I'm always ahead, is that you also have to worry about the technology. And a lot of people, you'll see in this, that, I don't think they have done that so much yet. That was I'll get to that in my slides. Anyhow, so this session is about technology convergence. And by that, I'm talking about IT/OT, the convergence, y'all say convergence in this case. Convergence of IT and OT technology within the OT environment is what I'm talking about, okay? I couldn't say collaboration, I had to say convergence. Even that's not clear. But anyhow, I'm sorry, I'm really going here today. Those who know me, this is normal, okay? I hate to say that. I just entertain up here, that's my job. Anyhow, let's get started. Now, for those that weren't in our session yesterday, I just want to mention, because I have a couple charts here I want to show you, and just to frame for you what those charts were. We did a survey last year. It was called Convergence. The current state of IT/OT cybersecurity convergence was the term of it, which probably turned off a lot of people now. But that topic is too complex. Personally, I'm not big on the surveys that just ask simple questions. You need to make a survey short, otherwise no one will take it. But if you make it short, then there's no depth to the results. It tells you what you kind of already know in many cases. So what we did in this one is we did a survey. It's a short 5-10 minute survey. Actually, the link's at the bottom of the page. If you haven't taken it, I encourage you to take it. It literally is 5 to 10 minutes. It's very easy. And it was just to kind of screen people. And I only want end users to take it. That was the focus too. No, we're trying to keep away from suppliers. Nothing against suppliers, but that isn't the focus of this. And then I did follow-up interviews with a lot of people. We decided to take that approach because you really have to talk in depth. What are you really doing in this? How are you organized? That kind of stuff. Too much to put in a survey. So that was the nature of the study we were doing, and we're continuing that, like I said. And in the end, we got about 25 companies participated that I talked to and things like that. And so I wouldn't say this is a statistical survey by any means, statistically significant, but I think it maybe is more significant than some of the statistical ones, supposedly that say 4%, error plus or minus 4%. So anyhow, and that research is still ongoing, like I said, and there's the chart. I think a lot of people in here actually have taken it, but I don't. There's people who have not. And if you do take it, then I am going to eventually write a report on this, and you'll get the copy of the results. If you don't take it, then you just have to deal with me rambling about them up here. So, with that said, okay, now these are the slides I had yesterday. Just want to summarize some stuff. First thing was we had asked people, how would you describe the current state of your IT/OT cybersecurity convergence efforts? And I had integration in the thing. I keep looking over here because these guys gave me trouble about this terminology all the time. But what I found was 70% of the people I really talked to and got results from, said, yeah, they already have a program in progress. okay? There was some, maybe 15% that said, we're planning to do it, but we don't know what we're going to do. Other ones said, we're still evaluating whether we should. But in essence, 70% of the companies are doing something. But one surprising thing on this slide was that one of the questions is, where do you stand, in essence, in the program? And 30% said they were already converged, which I was quite surprised by. And maybe they are. Maybe they're fully converged, as you might say it. Maybe they're converged to the point that they want to go. That may be. Maybe they just have a different definition of what convergence means, But anyhow, that was the result of that one. The next slide I had, and I had it yesterday too, but I want to talk about it again, was I said, okay, now what was the reasons that you chose to converge? You're trying to converge your programs. And there's a bunch of options I gave here. And this is organized in the ones, it's a hard chart to read. Let me just summarize it. The most important reason people gave was increased concern about OT cybersecurity risks, which I think is valid, given all the ransomware in the world today, and I think the sophisticated attacks, particularly also if you're an international company and you have plants all over the place, I think today could be a very dangerous thing, so you have to be very concerned. The second most common reason had to do with people, which is what I have been seeing for years. There aren't enough people in the OT to take care of cybersecurity. And I think that currently is putting a lot of companies at risk, but they can't deal with it because they can't hire the people. I think a lot more people are educated today but in the topic, but in the past that was a big problem too. And on the bottom of the list, you'll see it says they have a desire to use more IT cybersecurity solutions in OT. Now that just says that's the least important reason that they chose to do this, okay? So I'll be commenting about that. I was surprised by that. And one reason is because, in my mind, you need to have you need to get the better solutions in the OT environment in order to take advantage of the IT people to help you do the OT, okay? The next slide, though, is a simple question. I just said, with respect to people, how are you organizing? When you're converging people, how are you doing it? And, most companies, and then we've talked about this in several forums before. We talked about organization and how people are organized, and companies are quite different. I'll tell you that from my research. But most of them are just saying, no, we're just trying to drive more collaboration among the cybersecurity teams. They're saying, we don't want to take the OT people and put them into IT. Now, that was the biggest portion. But the interesting thing on that chart, if you look, that's the top bar. You see it kind of sticks out like, boy, that's really by far the more dominant response. But then the next two are ways where you combine IT and OT people into one team. But there were two different choices there. One is we're combining them and we're just going to combine the people but keep them on dedicated assignments. Like you're in the OT function, you're in the IT. Or the other question was cross-train. So if you add those up together, it comes out pretty much as the same as the top. So it seems to me it's about an even mix as to whether companies are reorganizing, not reorganizing. Now, the next thing, I asked a question about processes. And this was simply, what are you trying to accomplish by converging your IT and OT cybersecurity processes? And most of them, I found that most people really want to use their IT processes. I think they think, my read on this is, most of them see IT processes as more sophisticated when it comes to policies, procedures, and things like that. They would like to adopt all that they can of that, as much as they can of that type of thing, given the constraints of operating in a plant, all right? I think we all know that. You just can't adopt all those kind of policies. But there was a real push to say, I'm taking the IT policies and I want to make OT and IT similar, the same where I can. And I think one of the reasons for that is over the years, I think there was concern. I don't hear about many attacks that have this effect. But when you have a mismatch between what the policies are in OT and what the policies are in IT, somebody comes in and they're allowed to go they might be allowed to do something that when you get to OT, they aren't allowed to do it, or vice versa. So that creates security gaps. So I think that was one reason why. I've heard people say that. Then the other ones there are I just want to update my OT processes, security. When I say processes, I mean security management processes. I want to just update my OT cybersecurity processes to to reduce those inconsistencies with IT. Not necessarily use that as the approach to do it. Just, I'm going to keep what I have, but I'm going to improve them where I have holes, known holes. And then the other one is, well, there were two with that. Anyhow, that was processes. I didn't dwell on that too much. That's where I realized yesterday that we had slides in the wrong decks and stuff like that. Now that was the stuff I did yesterday that you kind of saw but you didn't see. Now let me get to the stuff you didn't see. And that had to do with, I'm sorry. What I did, I took these slides and recombined them. I wanted this slide in here though, because the fact that, now back to this fact of, the desire to use more advanced IT security tools in OT. That was the lowest reason why people were trying to converge systems, IT and OT. And I just kind of thought, I don't want to say it didn't surprise me completely, but because I know a lot of people don't want to do things like that. They're very afraid of OT, and there's a lot of reasons why you can't use IT processes. But what surprised me was, if you're going to converge people into groups, and you go to IT, and let me qualify that again, or clarify. Historically, I've always talked about the convergence as a solution to the problem of not having enough resources in OT to deal with it. You can go out and hire an MSSP, or you could say, no, why don't I take advantage of my IT group that's here? Because there's a lot of resources there, they know lots of stuff, and somehow we'll take advantage and leverage that. But and I think companies are doing it for that reason, many of them. That's not the reason, but a reason. But I think what's important is, unless you also provide the tools in OT to enable the IT people to do the security, you really can't take advantage of them. You know what I mean? You got to have the visibility. I would think as soon as you get an IT person involved or IT security groups involved, they're going to say, wait a minute, I need this information, and I need this information that I can't get. Now, I could get it if I had my solutions down there. And maybe they can't get it because they don't have their solutions down there. Or I need it integrated. I want to take and look and say, where did this come from? It came from IT. Let me track it all down with the forensics. You need to have both information together. So I think that's a big reason why you need to put in the IT technology into OT. It's one good reason. And the other thing is, I think when you do that, it actually eases the convergence of people. For those people who aren't converging their people yet, if you go to converge your people, it's going to be easier if you make it easier for the IT people to do the things you're asking them to do. They'll be happier to work with you. Okay? Now we get to technologies. And with respect to the cybersecurity technologies, I asked, what is your goal with respect to your convergence of IT and OT cybersecurity technologies? Are you trying to, now again, I have them in order of importance. The highest one was to update, now these are for the people who said they were doing convergence of technology. Said update OT with IT technology to enable the maximum use of IT cybersecurity solutions. Okay? Which is kind of conflicting with the earlier slide, but I think, like I said, it was a different group of people. Other ones are doing it just to enable support, the two things I just was talking about. The other driver, and it's actually a little surprising to me, was that the update of OT with IT technology to satisfy CISO demands. I mean, a lot of companies, when I talk to people, our CISOs insisting we give them this information, we give them this and this and that, and we need to, probably even to the point of using common solutions, saying, why can't you use my solution down there? And when I say CISO, it could be CIO, it could be CISOs, but it's from the IT side. And notice, few people there's some people who still say, no, I don't want any of that stuff in my system. And I understand that. But given this slide, and you say, okay, they do want to use more advanced IT security for whatever the reason, whether they're pushed to, whether they see benefits, what's stopping them from doing that? Okay? I think that's a question, and we have a panel here that's going to answer this question for all of us today. They're going to explain everything to you. But anyhow, that's one of the questions I'm not asking it as a specific question to the panel, but it's the essence of what I'm trying to ask. So it just strikes me as if you have people who say, I see benefits in IT technologies in OT, why aren't you trying to do something about it, okay? And there's lots of reasons. I understand. There's budget reasons. You can't shut down plants. There's a lot of reasons. But I want to get to what the reason is. And then this last one, I think this is the last slide I had. I just ask, okay, if you are doing convergence, which kinds of things are you doing? Now, I probably should have expanded the list a lot more, but this was the list I actually asked people. And the results, it didn't surprise me. I don't know if it surprises anybody here. A lot of people are saying, I want to upgrade my networks, my networks. Again, with more more advanced next generation firewalls, though, as Blake will say, what does that mean? Right? It's a very confusing term. But I think they want to adopt firewalls like that so that enables them to do more I think two things. One is so you have better management of all your policies across all the devices. I mean, even I call the OT cybersecurity networking companies tend to still, you have a lot of problems being able to implement common policies across all the devices in the system. So I think the IT systems tools are good for that. The nice thing with the IT, I think, and I'm not promoting the IT here, but is with a lot of apps moving out to the cloud, you're starting to see a lot of companies saying, well, you can get the same policy whether you're on the plant, in the cloud, whatever you're doing, you can all manage all those policies from one common area. And that's the nice thing with this too. So I think that's one of the drivers. That's one that I heard. Then the other technology that we're seeing people use is secure remote access. And I think everybody knows you need to have secure remote access. As Blake, I think, said yesterday, VPN's kind of long gone. You're thinking that that's going to solve your problem. You know, anyhow, it's not. We've written a lot of stuff at ARC about that. We call it about connected workers and remote access and things like that. And you need much more control over things and stuff like that. So, but that's the other one that people seem to be saying, well, we're doing that. Now, for many, that's probably the extent. Then when I asked about things like endpoint detection and zero trust, you see it's a lot less. That's the third bar. That's not one of their goals. And I think one of the reasons may be a goal. It's not as bad. No, endpoint's a little bigger than zero trust. And my own personal opinion, and again, what I heard is, you know, it's not an easy thing to do. You have to get everything else in place before you say, I'm going to do something like zero trust. Again, maybe I'll put it in quotes. What do you mean by zero trust? But because there's different definitions. But in order to even get certificate management and things like that, there's so much you have to do in networks. I mean, even things like NAC, because many networks, old networks, don't even have that capability. So you really have a lot to do. So that kind of is fine with me. So one of the things I'm hoping we'll find out is what our panelists kind of think about those technologies, what technologies they think are important to converge. What IT technologies or they think is most important and to implement in their OT systems to improve the security within their OT systems. Okay, now with that said, we made it through without any problems in the deck this time, which I was very proud of. No, and I didn't, and I didn't ask it. That was one of the problems. But that's a very good point. I mean, agreed. Does anybody else have a question on the charts? Or we can talk about the charts when I get the panel up here, then I'll let you answer the gentleman. That's my goal. My whole goal here is just to get to where I get other people answer questions. So, all right, with that said, we've got this illustrious panel of end users. And if they just come up, I'll just call you by alphabetical order here. That's how your names are here. We got Eric Devoy, who's the principal security architect from BP. Yeah, come on up. Just take a seat wherever you like. Then Keith Deshari, who's director of technical expertise, automation, process control, and electrical at BASF. Then Mark Duck, who's principal technical expert in operational technology, security with Shell. And then Blake Gilson, who was on the panel yesterday, who's the industrial cybersecurity expertise manager at ExxonMobil. Now, you can find all their bios in the app, so we don't want to stand here and read off the bios. We're all fantastic people, and so our bios are nice. Okay, did you give me? You did.